Do you struggle to improvise a solo on guitar? Coming up in this step-by-step lesson, the big mistake that most of us make as we start to improvise a solo on guitar. A simple formula to find a scale that fits over all the chords. Locate a target note that fits over each chord, and then I'll show you a way to make it sound musical. And some examples, putting all this stuff together so we can improvise a guitar solo of our own. If you struggle to improvise a solo on guitar, this step-by-step video is for you. Let's get into it. The big mistake that most of us make, and I've done it myself, is that we can just improvise by playing up and down the pentatonic scale. For many years, I was stuck in that mentality that was the structure I needed to use. And really, in the first position, a lot of times I was just stuck there playing up and down, just hoping to hit a good note. I know some of you guys and ladies can relate to that. In the following chapters, I'm going to show you how we can use this pentatonic scale for structure, but also make it sound musical, so we can improvise a solo with confidence. I just want to take a second to thank everyone for all your support. I really do appreciate it. Now let's look at a simple formula to help us find a scale that fits over all the chords. If we look at the chord progression I used in the intro, it's A major, G major, D, back to A. The A major pentatonic works well over these chords. The formula is really just looking at the first chord in a progression, and this works over almost any blues rock type backing track. There are some exceptions for sure, but this is a great way to get started. So if we have a progression E minor, C, G, D, E minor pentatonic, the first chord, use the corresponding pentatonic scale. And this works, and test this out. I'm telling you, go to just blues rock backing tracks and look at that first chord and play the corresponding pentatonic scale. A major, like in this case, where this A major progression we're going to use a lot in this video, A major pentatonic. That's not the only scale that you can use, but it will get you started and give you some structure to improvise a good guitar solo. Now, a great way to sound more musical and melodic is to use a target note. We're going to use the progression I used in the intro, A, G, D, back to A. So if we take this first chord, A, strum the chord, slide up to the major third of that chord, which is C sharp. So A. The A chord is made up of a A, C sharp, and E, and down here it's E, A, C sharp. No matter what order, anywhere in this fretboard, it's still an A chord if you group those three notes together. So very common A chord here, but slide up to the C sharp, the major third, from right here, from 4 to 6. G, the major third of G is a B note. So you're sliding from 2 to 4 on this G string. D. You can slide up to it's an F sharp note for the major third of that D. I know this sounds complicated. Take a few minutes, because once you get this down in this simple progression, you're going to start doing this with a lot of different blues rock progressions, and it will just give you a lot of confidence, and it'll start sounding musical. So again, getting started, this is a great exercise for any chord on this fretboard, and we're using some major chords, but I'll show you how the minor chord works later. And if you do that with the progression, now use single notes. Right there, we are starting to sound musical with those notes, because we're using the notes in a chord. And coming up right quickly here, we're going to look at the A major pentatonic for structure, inserting these notes, and it just gives a good flow to your improvising. Now for some examples. Check out this demo, and then I'll have just a super slow detail breakdown. So you could use just the A major pentatonic to improvise over this simple progression. But if you're watching this video, you want more than that. We can use the scale for structure. So playing up and down that scale is not improvising. We want to connect, a connection with the chords that we're playing over. You can actually hear the movement there. That is so fun to play that way. I was thinking about the chords, but you just, that exercise we did earlier in the video here, this is where it all starts. So we can just use this A note here, second fret of the G string. You know, within that major pentatonic scale, we can 2, 4 on the D string to that A note. Then slide from 4 to 6 on the G string. Get that movement, have that groove. Just running up those notes, and as you slide up to that 6, that C sharp note, major third, you have another set of notes there from the major pentatonic. And if you break it up like that, it sounds musical because you're pausing and just saying a statement with your notes, and then when the other chord comes up, you can say another statement, and you'll get these ideas that start flowing together. So as it comes up to the G, I'm I'm sliding up to that major third, that B note, 4th fret of the G string, but keeping in mind this major pentatonic. And then the D chord is coming up. Remember, F sharp is the note we're targeting for that chord. And I showed you up here, F sharp here, 9th fret of the B string, but also on the 4th fret of the D strings, another F sharp within that A major pentatonic. Sliding up to it, and it's just a good way to sound musical is to slide up to that major third. So I'm on G, going to D chord, F sharp, and then I'm sliding up to another chord shape. If you bar on the 7th fret, the D, G, and B strings, you have that D chord shape, D triad. And then you're hitting that F sharp again. An A note is in the chord. So all the things I'm doing here are around each chord. And it might take you some time to do this. I know it's just, you might just want to feel the solo, play a pentatonic scale, but there's no confidence there. You at least need to be aware of the chords as they're changing, but just trying to adhere to them in this slow-paced backing track. And I'll leave a link for this track because this will help you practice these concepts, but this will help you connect ideas together. And basically continuing on, the more you can visualize this fretboard, and memorizing's part of it, but also just visualizing the chord shapes. If we know what an A chord is here, there's other shapes of that A. And we can call them triads, and then if I pick them one note at a time, they're arpeggios. I just like to say chord shapes because I use them in so many different ways. They're basically chord shapes, and you can look at it as part of the cage system. Whatever it takes for you to visualize this fretboard, look down and instantly see the stuff, and then you're going to start to know what it sounds like before you even hit the notes. That's when you start really connecting as you play and improvise a guitar solo. I know I'm talking a lot, but this is so important to just not have me play all over and just show you the notes. That's not going to help you in the long term. This is getting more advanced as we start working our way up this fretboard at these other chord shapes. For the A, we can slide up to that major third on the 6th fret of the G string and then hit the A note in the 5th fret of the E string. And that's just part of a triad shape. You can look at it that way. And that's another shape right here. 9 on the G, 10 on the B string, and 9 on the E string. Make up an A chord again, but we're just hitting these two notes here. 9 on the G, 9 on the E string. And if you're struggling, just stay on the A chord only. And then start connecting them with the major pentatonic. Now, I forgot about that phrase. I added a little bit of the A minor pentatonic scale, just really briefly. A minor. You could use this for part of the solo or just little bits of it. For me, it sounds a little rough to play just the minor pentatonic, but I'm sure Stevie Ray Vaughan would make it sound awesome. I just like to use the major and little bits of that minor pentatonic. So I'm just in the 5th fret here and bending that note a little bit. And back to the root on the 7th fret of the D string. So right before that, it's 5, 7 on the B, and then I'm hitting that F sharp note, and then back down to the root. You can hear it going back to that A chord when you play a move like that. And another thing that helps in the confidence of improvising is at least know where the root note is of the whole progression, because you're going to find the A major pentatonic that way. You're going to find the A major chord shapes that way. If you know that that's an A note there, I know I can play that little kind of phrase there. So we have the A here, full bend on, well, it's in the 10th fret of the B string, do a full bend on 12, and then hit 10, 12 on the E, another bend, release to 12, back to 10 for that root note. That always sounds really good in a major sounding progression like this one. Then I'm just working my way up the fretboard. Another thing to think about is you have a major pentatonic here, and locating that is using your pinky on the 5th fret of, that's an A note right there. So you can do the same thing up here. Getting back to that root. So we can walk up and do some repeating licks, because in this progression, those repeating licks are your friend. Just using the A major pentatonic in the octave up here, sliding from 12 to 14 on the E, and hitting that root in the 12th fret. And the same thing again, 14, 16, hitting 14 on the D string, and then 14, 16, back to the root on 14. And then we can do a repeating lick. It sounds good over all the chords because you're using notes that are in those chords. So hammering on and pulling off from 14 to 16, hitting 16, and then 16 on the G, 16 on the D string, back to the root note on the 14th fret of the G string. Again, slow. Just using that major pentatonic there, hitting on 17. You have an A note here, and walking down the scale, 4 notes. So 17, 14 on the E, and then 17, 14 on the B string. Hit the note and pause, and then walk down the other 3 notes. But if you do that in succession and repeating, it's not. That's a different lick that sounds good too, but this little pause just adds a different flavor. And everything you do up here, obviously you can do down here. Same notes. Just using these chord shapes. The more chord shapes you know, and I know the notes of them, but I'm not thinking about that when I'm improvising. I'm looking at the shape and what I can do around that shape in different parts of the fretboard. You have the major pentatonic around these chord shapes, and knowing that is huge also. And it just helps you flow up and down this fretboard. When I'm improvising, I'm really trying to feel it, but there's still some rules that you should go by, that I go by, just knowing the right notes to hit, the confident ones, and you can tweak those, bend them, and use blue notes and a lot of different things. But first, this comes first, the structure of a solo. I just really hope you guys really work on this stuff, because I know for me, I was stuck in that long time beginner mode. And part of it was I could not improvise rhythm or lead. I was just, I felt stuck. I could play a lot of songs, but taking them and making them my own took a long time. And I just, this is a step forward for a lot of you. I guarantee it. Most guitar players really live to improvise. Just improvise their own guitar solos. And this is definitely a way to get started doing that, a confident way. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I hope to talk to you soon.